You're tuned in to Porch Talk with Rev Pat, where raw, real talk rules. So sit back and relax with that delicious cup of coffee or tea or your favorite glass of wine as Rev Pat delivers real, transparent, and raw conversations about all things life. Let's get started.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. This is Porch Talk with Rev Pat, and this is part 2 of my interview with J.R. Reed, and we are discussing autism. He was not diagnosed until he was 45 years old, but one thing we closed our first segment with is we want to be not just aware, but we want to accept all that comes with this diagnosis. So grab your coffee, grab your wine, even a glass of tea. Well, I did that backwards, y'all. Y'all know what I mean. Coffee, tea, or wine. And let's get talking. This is part 2 of my conversation with J.R. Reed. Okay, J.R., I want to open up with, for those who don't know, this is one of the questions you said that we can ask you. No, sure. I want to go back because there is another question on here. And I didn't know what this was. It is, what is a SPED kid? Am I pronouncing that right?
Was a what?
What is a SPED? S-P-E-D?
SPED kid.
SPED
yes.
Kid, and why is it a label? I don't even know what that is.
Okay, well, when he gets into school, you will hear his teachers and school administrators refer to him as a SPED kid. That is a child in the special education environment. So again, just like with my parents telling me that I wasn't living up to my potential, most of the people that are using the term SPED kid don't realize that it's a label and what harm it's actually doing to that child, because it's differentiating them from the rest of the students. It's telling them they're different.
Right.
And I spoke a couple years ago at the Missouri Department of Education Special Education Teachers Conference, and we talked about that. I said, I heard words stupid and lazy from 5th grade through 12th grade, and it affected me. Now, what do you think a kid who hears SPED kid his whole career is going to think? He's or she is being told constantly that they're different. That is a label that says you're different. And the example I used was, I said, so if you take a child in the traditional classroom setting, would you call them traditional kid?
No.
No. So why are you calling them SPED kid? Why not call them Johnny, Carol, Stephen,
Noah.
Yeah.
Let's go by there.
But teachers and administrators will label these kids without realizing that they're labeling them.
Yeah. And then there's your first question, you said you can ask me this, and you said, for those who don't know, what is autism?
Autism is your brain being differently wired. It's a different way of learning. It's a different way of seeing things, and it's a different way of communicating. And everybody's different. There's a professor named Dr. Stephen Shore. He teaches. He's the only autistic professor of autism. He teaches in the special education department at Adelphi University in Long Island, or on Long Island. And his famous quote is, if you've met one person with autism, then you've met one person with autism. Meaning that there are so many traits and quirks, or whatever you want to call them, that we could have. Everybody's got their own unique combination. There's a lot of them that overlap. The noises, the feels, the sensory stuff, a lot of that stuff overlaps, but your grandson has his own unique set of abilities, things that he will struggle with, triggers, all of that. He is unique, just like a person who's not autistic.
Right, and he is a unique, loving, he's the most loving baby around. Now, why is it so difficult, from your perspective, having lived this out? what is the most difficult part about connecting with others? Because he says sometimes he'll deal with you, sometimes he doesn't. I mean, some mornings he just loves my husband to death, other moments, other times he just doesn't want to be bothered whatsoever.
Mhm.
And I am sure that having lived a life up until the age of 45, trying to connect with others, when you're really trying to figure out what's going on your own self,
Mhm.
how do you connect? Okay, we're advanced now. Now we know that what autism is, and we can't put everybody in the same box.
Right.
But coming from the perspective of a child who had to live through 5th through 12th grade, all the way up through college, and then 45 years old, being diagnosed at 45, how did you connect with others? Or how difficult was it to connect with others? To know in my mind, I feel different.
It was very situational. There were times that it was really difficult to communicate with some people, and there were other people that I could communicate with more easily. Well, now that I'm an adult and they're doing a lot more autism research than they were back in the day. A few years ago, they did something that's called that they called the double empathy problem. It's where they basically they took a whole group of people that were, let me back up for a sec. Okay, so people like yourself that are not autistic, don't have ADHD, Tourette's, not bipolar, not dyslexic. You're what's called a neurotypical because you have a neurologically typical brain. People who are autistic and have all those other things I just mentioned are referred to as neurodivergence because we have a brain that diverges from the norm, which again, not a bad thing,
Right.
just reality.
Yeah.
So they did this study where they basically played telephone. They took a group of all people on the spectrum and, they gave the first person a message, and they went down the line and the message came out more or less the way it started. Then they took a group of neurotypical people and did the same thing and they had the same result. Then they mixed the group, some neurotypical, some neurodivergent. The message might have started out with, I want a peanut butter sandwich. And it might have ended up with Putin invaded the Ukraine. It was so different. And the point of the study, what they learned was people that are autistic tend to communicate better with people that are autistic, and people that are neurotypical tend to communicate better with people that are neurotypical. Now, what I've always said, and especially in a school and a business setting, is you have to develop a language between yourself and another person.
Right.
So like you and your grandson, he might not say something the typical way. If he wants a banana, for example, he might not just come up and say, I want a banana. He just might point.
Right.
But that's what he wants. And so that's a shared communication. You kind of developed your own language. And
that makes sense because isn't that what we do with people on a normal basis? We don't communicate with every person the same way.
Exactly.
Because we are aware of one person's ability to just take a sentence or take a conversation, and it's just that, it's a conversation. Whereas you can have the same conversation on the same topic with someone else, and they just get the whole conversation jacked up, and you're like, how do we go from this to this? So it's really just employing relational.
Yeah. And,
in a different way, and just learning how to communicate on another level. Now, with that being said, we know that it can be frustrating. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know. Everybody else might say, oh, okay, it's not a problem. It can be frustrating when he's having a really bad day. We're all human.
Right.
And when you don't have the necessary tools to say, okay, I need to back up, or I need to be a little bit understanding, but this has been going on since 6 a.m. and it's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now my patience is just like, okay.
Yeah.
How would you, because you really had to experience this a lot, the impatience of it all, because you were in a different situation. Nobody knew what was going on. They just thought you were weird.
Yep.
How would you then, what would you advise for parents and siblings and aunts and uncles that have to interact with this child whose mind or whose brain just doesn't work the same way? He's not right. He's and I don't like that, because I don't want to, my fear is, my greatest fear, I don't want my grandson labeled at all.
No.
I don't want labels on him. I don't want, he is a beautiful, smart, loving baby boy who just has moments that we all have to figure out how to adjust to and how to handle. And
well,
one of the things that I have heard is the best thing you can do for him is treat him normal.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and one thing, 100%. The one thing that we have to do is not only acknowledge, but truly believe that we are not broken neurotypicals, but we're perfectly created autistic people.
Perfectly created.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with us. And, you know, autism is considered a disability. And for medical purposes, insurance purposes and whatnot, it absolutely is. But the PC way to talk about it is to say, I have autism. I prefer I'm autistic. Yeah. Because in my brain, when I hear I have cancer, I have diabetes, then that labels and that defines me.
Right.
Autism is just part of who I am, just like my purple goatee and my poor eyesight is part of who I am, you know.
Look, and I want to say this, because my father in the ministry, when he was diagnosed with cancer, the first thing he told us was, I have the disease does not have me.
See, and that's the right attitude, and that's, you know,
and that's the way he lived it out. No sympathy. Don't be sending me, baking me no cakes, calling me out. He didn't want any of that. Okay. He didn't want.
I will let people bake me cakes all day long. But the other stuff,
he didn't want the sympathy cakes. He did not want that. Let me put it that way. He didn't want the sympathy cakes.
Right.
So,
you know,
being a dad.
Yeah.
Have you ever, once you found out, do you ever have thoughts of what if my daughter is autistic?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I still think that there is a chance she might be, but she's now 24. And if she wants to get diagnosed, then she will get diagnosed. If she's happy with the way she is and doesn't want to know, then I'm fine with that as well.
Wow.
You know, and, you know, people for a long time were talking about all the different reasons people were autistic. You know, the vaccines was a big thing. Well, I have a friend of mine who's a very, very great autism self-advocate, and she says sex causes autism. We're born with it. We're going to die with it. Sex causes autism. It's just part of who we are. There's not, you know, there's nothing else outside that's going to cause.
Okay. All right. That
autism.
went over my head, but now I.
Yeah. No. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we're born autistic, and we're going to die autistic. There's nothing that, because our mom gave us a vaccine or didn't give us a vaccine or anything like it, that doesn't cause autism.
Mommy and daddy got their groove on.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, because man, It took me a minute to catch that, like, sex causes harm. Okay, but now I get it. So, and I'm thinking to myself that your attitude towards your daughter is a blessing, because I love the fact that you said it's up to her. If she wants to get tested, she can. But if she likes herself the way she is, you're fine with it.
And to be clear, the diagnosis of autism doesn't change the way you feel about yourself. You know, she can still, she can like herself the way she is and know, and she can like herself the way she is and not know. And that's her decision. And I totally respect that.
You know, just hearing you say that, knowing that you are autistic does not change whether or not you like yourself.
Right.
That's cool. That's cool, because it really is the truth. It is how we react to it.
Yeah.
That affects.
Now, that being said, though, that there are moments that you have. For example, I said that I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was in college. Well, what I didn't say is it took me 6 years to get an associate's degree, because the way they teach and the way I learn are two different things. And there weren't the accommodations like your grandson's now going to have, you know, where they can help you learn. I took 2 college classes 2 years ago just because I wanted to. And I went to the disability services office, talked to the people, showed them my diagnosis, and they talked about, you know, the ways I learn. And I say, you know, I like to listen to what the teacher's saying, you know, the lecture, but I have a really hard time when I'm taking the notes and following what the teacher is saying. So what they did was they set up for me a service. They loaned me a small iPad that all it had on it was Messenger and Skype. They had my class schedule. And when I got to class, I opened Skype, opened Messenger, and just said, I'm here. And there was somebody from a company that's a transcription company that was listening through Skype to the lecture. And 12 hours later, I would get a printout of that lecture.
Wow.
And I will tell you what, that made school so much easier for me. So much easier for me. But I like myself just the way I am. But I wish that I had had these accommodations earlier in life, because then I could have a bachelor's or I could have a master's. And working in the disability field, if I want to work for an agency or anything like that, you almost always have to have a master's degree. So I like myself, but there are still those moments where you kind of kick yourself going, man, I wish autism had been known about earlier, or I wish, you know, that I could have learned the way that they were teaching.
I tell you what, look, life experience trumps any degree.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know that we put that like, you gotta have this degree to do this, but I'd rather talk to someone who has lived it, experienced it,
Yep.
and is still living it and has made it a mission of his or her life to educate others and be an advocate than somebody that just has a bunch of book sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? That is a perfect segue to what I wanted to say next. So this is for the parents and the grandparents, especially. The medical model of autism, what doctors, psychologists, pediatricians, psychiatrists, they will keep telling you what your child or what you cannot do. You know, your child will not speak. Your child will not be able to live on their own. Stuff like that. That's negative. And I don't listen to that. You need to listen to people that are either parent advocates or self-advocates, because they will tell you what you can do. And you can do this by using this little workaround.
Right.
For example, we were talking about the meltdowns on the first episode. I have a playlist on my iTunes that's called meltdown music. So if I feel myself starting towards a meltdown, I can just throw on my earbuds and close my eyes, unless I'm driving, then I keep them open, and just listen to that music, and it will just kind of help calm me down. Well, for other people, it might be reading, or it might just be taking a nap, or whatever, but you find what works for you, and you can find workarounds for these situations.
Well, I love that. You know what? We're gonna start working on some workarounds.
Yeah.
For my grandson. I know he loves music. I absolutely know he loves music. I know he loves music. We all know he loves music, and he loves and he can do whatever he wants to do as long as he has his little favorite movies, and he wakes up in the morning, he gets the thing. So, but I want to be continually learning about this, because not just for me, because I know that anything that happens to me I'm gonna meet someone. I'm gonna meet another grandmother or an aunt or a friend who finds herself in this situation. And like I said, my daughter and my son-in-law have handled this in a way that inspires me.
That's awesome.
And to see a young couple do their best to love him unconditionally, and tread these waters that are so new to them in the way that they have, is amazing.
If I was in your situation, where I, found out that my grandchild or my niece or my nephew or whoever was autistic, I would prefer to listen to people like you who have been there and done that. Not to somebody like a pediatrician who's read about it in a book.
Right.
The best psychologist I ever had was one who had a 14-year-old son who was autistic.
Look, now let me tell you, even when I worked for a counseling center, 9 times out of 10, I don't care how qualified the counselor was, the potential clients only wanted to talk with someone who had dealt with that issue themselves and were familiar with it, because they knew that they would have a connection. That's not like any other. And for me, depending on who I'm talking to, I can either be very open, or I can be very frustrated because I don't like the response.
Absolutely.
To be honest. And to be honest, the attitude ticks me off. And now I'm coming from a different place, and I'm working on that, because ignorance is ignorance. We're all ignorant of something. But at least remain open to be educated about something that you don't understand.
Absolutely.
And my husband is like, he's taking him under his wing, because he just doesn't want him like in a regular class setting or anything like that. But I know that if we do the work that we as adults that are around him need to do, like you said, there is nothing he can't do. It may take a little bit longer. It may require a little bit more work and a little bit more effort, but there is absolutely nothing that he cannot do. And the good thing is he has a 3-year-old brother who imitates. I find them imitating each other. And if the 3-year-old starts doodling or something like that, then he jumps in, and then the 3-year-old will watch him. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But more importantly, what's most important to me is education. Understanding this. And I will not get out of my mind that you were 45 years old. And I can't imagine how difficult it was for you to go through that much of your life, a chunk of your life, trying to figure out, why am I like this? Why do I do this?
Yeah, but
And I'm not trying to.
it made me who I am. And it gave me a much deeper understanding of what people go through. So it's easier for me to work and talk with other adults that were late diagnosed. Or, you know, I work with a lot of teens and young adults and their families as they're transitioning from life with mom and dad to trying to get out on their own and live their own life. And I mean, I do a lot of work with that. And I got invited to go talk to a group of, there were 5 kids that were in a transitioning program through one of the local agencies here in Missouri. And they asked if I would come talk to them. Well, I spent most of the hour asking them questions.
Yeah.
Because I can say, you know, well, you need to think about things ahead of time. You know, you don't just go get an apartment. You need to think about a job, and you need to think about transportation and bank account and stuff like that. So I could sit down there and I could tell them all that stuff that they've heard before. But I ask them, what is it that you most struggle with trying to get out on your own? What's the one thing or 2 things that are really standing in your way? Now, maybe I would have an answer for it at the time, maybe I wouldn't. But man, I was taking notes during that hour.
You know how probably how important that was to them to have somebody say, how or what do you struggle with? What do you think would hold? That's all people want. That's anybody. Right. I'm not talking about people that have been labeled this or labeled that.
Right.
In our core, because we are human,
mm-hmm.
What we want and desire most is that others allow us to give voice to the things
Absolutely.
that we are feeling. It's not about, oh, because I'm autistic. No, it's just me as a human being. This is how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Take the autism out of it. Take the cancer out of it. Take the whatever, the depression, the anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm a person that struggles with anxiety that would not even, once I was told or diagnosed with it, because of my role as a minister and biblical teacher, I did not want to say I deal with anxiety. Why? Because I know what that label carries. Until I had to accept this is who I am. I deal with anxiety. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can change it. I can do all of the study and find out what I can do naturally because I don't choose to take medication for it. But just the mere saying it and being afraid to have a conversation with people, because I am, and once I finally realized that admitting it and saying it, there were so many others that were in the same position, but they did not want to admit it because, quote unquote, they didn't want people talking about them or judging them or whatever. So I think that in any situation, yes, you're the expert, but what I need most is that maybe somebody sit down and just hear me. And isn't that true of most teens? Most teens anyway don't want to talk about anything that has to do with them. They're not with their mom, not with their dad, but they'll talk about it with a stranger or a close friend or maybe a relative. So I'm sure that you opened the door for them to move on and feel better about their decisions. I
hope so. I hope so. I mean, when I write anything or speak or even doing something like this, you know what? If one person gets something out of what we're talking about right now, just one person, it was worth all the time that I spent working on it. Right.
One person. That's all we're after. That should be any time we open our mouths, share anything. If you get one, then that one will go tell somebody else, and that one will go tell someone. So you're not after, I don't do the crowd. I'm not worried about the crowd. I'm not worried about how to do a perfect podcast. I'm not worried about any of that. My audience, all I want to deliver to my audience is information that will make an impact on their lives. And if it doesn't impact their lives, it'll impact somebody else's life because they can go back and say, hey, look, I heard a podcast about this. And that's it. The other stuff, not worried about it.
Yep.
Maybe I should be, but I'm not. Maybe I should be, but maybe I'm not. I'm at that point in stage in my life where I just want to do what I can to make the difference in somebody else's life.
Yeah. You know, I might spend 90 minutes writing and editing an article. And once it goes up, I get one comment from a person saying, now I get now I get it. Or, you know, thank you because this gave me some understanding. Well, just that first person. Great. I'm done. I've reached one person. I did my job.
I did my job. Look, I still haven't even figured out how they can comment. So I guess if they comment,
well, there's a lot of stuff I still haven't figured out either, but you know.
So we just gonna keep doing this. Now, we've got to close out, but I want to ask you something. I want to invite you. I have a members only, subscribers only, people that can subscribe to my podcast, and I offer exclusive content, and I would love to interview you
anytime.
And I'm going to send you a link, and let's schedule it. And I want to talk about relationships, autism and relationships. And I just want you to talk to us from your experience about autism, being autistic, and building relationships, because I think that's going to be vital along the way with my grandson.
It's funny you brought that topic up, because I actually wrote a book about autism and dating, like romantic relationships. And
you have to email me the link.
I self-published it, and then I talked to a publisher a couple years later, which was actually last year, and they wanted me to rewrite it and expand on other kinds of relationships as well, like with family and stuff. So I pulled the book down off of Amazon, and now the rewritten book is at the publisher, hopefully going to come out early next year.
No, it is going to come in.
Well, it's coming out. It's just early, mid-year, maybe mid next year, but yeah.
Well, see there.
Yeah.
There we go. That's confirmation. So once again, thank you for your time. I'm going to definitely send you a link so that we can schedule and record some exclusive content, and I'll just let you talk about relationships.
Okay.
Autistic.
Okay.
We'll just sit and chat. I'll have my coffee. You bring yours, and we'll sit down and we'll just do this again. It has been my absolute pleasure.
Oh no, hey, it's been an honor and a pleasure for me. Hey, Reverend Pat, we're family now, so.
We're family. I was about to tell you now. You know you stuck with me, right?
Yeah. No. Hey, we're family now. So anytime you've got a question, a comment, whatever, you know how to hit me up.
And let me tell you, my maiden name is Reed.
Nice.
My maiden name is Reed. So we're already connected.
All right.
Thank you so much.
And for the people that are listening, by the way, not we're just autistic.com. You can use the contact form. And if you've got questions, if you've got concerns, if you got whatever, I'm happy to answer them and help you any way I can.
And I will put that link in.
Thank you.
Y'all can also find that link when this interview goes live. And JR, I'm going to send you a link to your episode so that you'll have it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I will also send you all social media content.
Trust me, I'm going to promote this very, very strong.
Well, you got it. And my brother, we're going to talk again. Thank y'all for joining us for this two-parter. I know that you got some information that you can share. Please share this information with others. Don't keep it to yourself, even if it doesn't apply to you. If you know someone who has an autistic child, grandson, nephew, niece, share this information, share the iPod, share the podcast, and let's just make everybody's life just that much better. Let's be about the business of being a blessing to others. Thank you for joining me on the porch. I will see you all next week.